A weekend family dinner that should have been joyful suddenly drowned in suffocation when an insulting remark echoed. My name is Brenda, a woman who is 30 years old, experiencing the most humiliating moment of my entire life. My father looked directly at me across the dining table with a completely straight face before delivering his final decision about our upcoming family vacation. "I'm not paying for 2 seats just because you're overweight," he declared without a single ounce of hesitation or empathy in his voice. An incredibly awkward atmosphere completely consumed the dining room, while the rest of my relatives simply exchanged suppressed smirks instead of defending me. The conversation smoothly transitioned back to their exciting travel itinerary, as if my emotional devastation did not even exist. I was officially crossed off the guest list for a trip I had been looking forward to for months. The very next morning arrived with the chaotic sounds of rolling suitcases echoing through the hallway. I stood quietly in the corner of the living room while watching them rush out the front door without offering a single apology or even a quick goodbye. They left me behind in the exact same property that I legally own without a second thought. The fading sound of their car engine pulling away from the curb finally woke me up from years of pathetic submission. The deafening silence of my empty house felt like a sharp slap to my face that pushed me to grab my phone to call a local locksmith immediately. The journey of permanently removing those toxic parasites from my life officially started right at that exact second. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Please subscribe to the channel to follow my complete story of taking back my self-respect. The piercing sound of drilling metal finally ceased when the locksmith tightened the last screw on my new deadbolt. I immediately grabbed several heavy-duty cardboard boxes from the garage to carefully pack up the personal belongings of my father William, my mother Barbara, along with my sister Kelsey. Going through their bedrooms felt incredibly liberating as I neatly folded their clothes while making sure everything was meticulously organized to prevent any future complaints. I printed out clear name labels for every single box to ensure there would be absolutely no confusion about whose items belonged where. Sorting through their possessions brought a strange sense of closure since I realized how much physical space their negativity had occupied in my home. It took several exhausting trips to carry all those heavy boxes out to the covered front porch, where they would remain fully protected from the weather. I stacked them methodically before taping a formal written notice directly onto the front door right at their eye level. The legal document clearly stated that they had exactly 72 hours to remove their property, in strict accordance with state eviction laws. Placing that piece of paper on the solid wood felt like officially establishing an unbreakable boundary between my future peace along with my painful past. The remainder of the weekend passed in complete tranquility until Sunday night arrived, with the harsh screeching of car brakes piercing through the quiet suburban neighborhood. Moments later, the frantic rattling of old keys struggling uselessly against the brand-new locks echoed through the entryway. Their initial confusion quickly escalated into a barrage of furious cursing mixed with continuous aggressive pounding against the heavy front door. The sheer volume of their screaming made it entirely obvious they expected me to immediately surrender to their demands, just like I always did in previous years. Instead of rushing to open the door, I calmly turned on the smart doorbell camera system using my tablet from the safety of the living room. I looked straight into the glowing screen, watching their furious faces glaring back at the lens before confidently pressing the microphone button. I coldly informed Dad and Mom that they no longer possessed any legal right to step foot inside my property ever again, regardless of their anger. I sternly instructed them to carefully read the legal notice taped right in front of their faces to understand the strict deadline for retrieving their remaining boxes. Kelsey immediately started screaming threatening insults directly into the camera lens while wildly kicking the lower panels of the door frame. I completely ignored their pathetic temper tantrums by simply disconnecting the live feed without offering another single word of explanation. Turning my back to the chaotic noise outside felt incredibly empowering as I headed straight toward the hallway stairs leading up to the attic. I needed to do a final sweeping inspection to clear out some forgotten miscellaneous items Kelsey had lazily left behind in the upper storage space. The dusty attic contained a few heavy college textbooks belonging to Kelsey that I wanted to get rid of immediately to fully cleanse my living space. I gathered the massive stack of books into my arms while feeling a sudden rush of adrenaline urging me to finish this exhausting task as quickly as possible. Hurrying back down the steep wooden staircase in the dim light proved to be a terrible mistake, because my foot completely missed the edge of the third step. My body instantly lost all sense of balance, sending me tumbling violently down the sharp stairs without any way to catch myself. The heavy books scattered everywhere while my head struck the cold, hard floor with terrifying force, before total darkness completely swallowed my fading consciousness. 3 days later, the blinding fluorescent lights of the intensive care unit finally pulled me from my deep coma. The attending physician slowly walked into the sterile room carrying my recent X-ray results to deliver some absolutely devastating news regarding my physical condition. He solemnly explained that I had suffered a severe spinal cord injury during the terrible fall down the steep wooden stairs of my home. The detailed imaging scans showed significant compression along my lower vertebrae, causing the entire lower half of my body to completely lose all sensation. Hearing that it was currently impossible for me to walk or stand on my own sent a terrifying chill straight down my paralyzed spine. Panic immediately gripped my chest while I tried desperately to move my toes, without achieving even the slightest flicker of movement beneath the thin hospital blanket. Mom, along with Kelsey, suddenly pushed open the heavy hospital room door while putting on an incredibly convincing performance for the surrounding medical staff. They dramatically explained to the sympathetic nurses how they had supposedly heard a massive crash from outside the locked house on that fateful Sunday night. My parents spun a wild tale about immediately calling emergency services to break down the front door to save my life from the horrific accident. Kelsey even grabbed my limp hand while looking up at the doctors with wide, innocent eyes to perfectly portray herself as a terrified, loving sister. Watching them wipe fake tears from their eyes made my stomach churn, since I knew they only cared about regaining unrestricted access to my valuable property. They seamlessly transitioned their deceptive act to manipulate the hospital social worker by completely fabricating a false narrative about my supposedly isolated living situation. They insisted that my current medical emergency required immediate familial intervention, while completely omitting the crucial fact that I had legally evicted them just a few days prior. Mom looked directly at the hospital administrator with a look of intense motherly concern permanently plastered across her wrinkled face to secure her manipulative plan regarding my living arrangements. She is no longer capable of caring for herself, so we are her only relatives who can take responsibility right now, she stated with absolute conviction. The overwhelmed medical professionals lacked the available resources to thoroughly investigate the underlying truth behind their highly calculated claims of devotion. We will record this temporarily so she can be discharged home safely, but the family must monitor her closely, the doctor advised, while updating my medical chart. The hospital administration agreed to release me after my parents eagerly signed the temporary medical proxy papers, promising full-time care without requiring any lengthy formal court approval. An ambulance was quickly arranged to transport me back to my residence under the completely false assumption that I would be recovering in a perfectly safe environment. The harsh reality of my terrifying new situation became glaringly obvious the very second the paramedics rolled my stretcher through the familiar front entryway. As soon as the front door clicked shut behind the departing medical team, their fake masks of loving concern instantly evaporated into thin air. They unceremoniously dumped my immobile body into a dreary, empty storage room located on the ground floor, without even bothering to provide proper, comfortable bedding. The chilly air inside the neglected space bit into my skin, while I realized I had become a helpless prisoner inside my own legal residence. Instead of attending to my urgent medical needs, they immediately began aggressively fighting over who would claim the largest upstairs master bedroom for themselves. I lay completely frozen in the dark room, listening to their heavy footsteps echoing above as they hastily dragged their unpacked cardboard boxes back inside my house, as if the legal eviction had never even happened. 2 weeks passed in suffocating tension as the fragile boundary between their fabricated kindness completely shattered to reveal their true malicious nature. During the first 5 days following my hospital discharge, Mom, along with Kelsey, maintained a remarkably convincing performance of being devoted caretakers. They consistently brought freshly prepared meals directly into my gloomy ground floor room while speaking to me using exaggerated tones of forced affection. Their sudden burst of domestic responsibility was entirely motivated by a deep paranoia regarding potential unannounced welfare checks from the hospital medical staff. They desperately needed to maintain the illusion of a perfectly loving household, just in case a social worker unexpectedly knocked on our front door to evaluate my recovery progress. The exact moment they realized the medical establishment had completely forgotten about my isolated existence, their fake compassion instantly evaporated into thin air. True malicious neglect quickly replaced their theatrical caregiving routines, leaving me completely stranded in that damp room without any basic human assistance or basic dignity. My daily nourishment was abruptly downgraded to opened cans of cold soup hastily shoved through the narrow crack of my bedroom door like I was a feral animal. They flatly refused to help me turn my heavy paralyzed body, causing the sensitive skin along my lower back to develop painful red pressure sores from lying in the exact same position for countless agonizing hours. The physical pain radiated intensely through my upper torso, while the terrifying reality of my complete helplessness threatened to break my mental sanity. My physical agony was soon matched by severe financial distress when my smartphone began vibrating constantly with aggressive banking notifications, highlighting massive unauthorized transactions. I stared in absolute disbelief at the glowing screen showing thousands of dollars draining from my personal checking account at an alarming speed. I quickly discovered Kelsey was actively using my stolen credit card to purchase expensive designer handbags, right, while I remained helplessly paralyzed in a dirty bed just a few feet away. I confronted her directly about the missing funds when she briefly stepped into my room to toss a crumpled laundry shirt onto my dusty nightstand. "You are just lying in one place, so what do you even need money for anyway, since I borrowed your card to buy some makeup as payment for taking care of you?" She sneered without displaying a single shred of guilt. Plunging into absolute utter despair over my seemingly inescapable trapped existence, I frantically scrolled through online support forums dedicated to severe spinal cord trauma survivors. It was within those digital message boards where I miraculously connected with my physical therapist, Derek, who offered a crucial lifeline during my absolute darkest moments. We initiated a secure video call where he patiently listened to the horrific reality of my domestic abuse, without casting any judgment or offering empty platitudes. He provided the profound emotional empathy I desperately needed by validating my immense suffering while reassuring me that my situation was not entirely hopeless. Derek requested immediate digital access to my official hospital medical files before thoroughly analyzing the detailed imaging scans through his computer monitor with intense professional scrutiny. His knowledgeable demeanor radiated genuine hope as he explained that my lower spinal cord was merely suffering from temporary swelling rather than permanent catastrophic severing. He firmly advised me to dismiss the initial grim prognosis from the emergency room doctors, while immediately mapping out a rigorous secret exercise regimen I could perform silently straight from my mattress. "I truly understand everything you are enduring right now, Brenda, so please do not give up yet, because we will begin training from the absolute smallest movements," he reassured me, with incredible sincerity that reignited my extinguished will to survive. Exactly at 2 in the morning, when steady snoring echoed from upstairs, my secret battle for recovery began. Derek initiated his scheduled video calls using complete silence to prevent alerting the selfish individuals sleeping directly above my dreary bedroom. He demonstrated intense physical therapy techniques using exaggerated hand gestures to guide me through agonizing deep tissue massages targeting my severely paralyzed lower limbs. I gritted my teeth together while forcing my uncooperative legs to stretch far beyond their current limitations, causing heavy beads of cold sweat to completely soak my dirty bedsheets. The excruciating physical pain radiated aggressively through my entire nervous system, yet I swallowed every single agonizing groan to maintain the absolute secrecy of my nocturnal rehabilitation journey. Witnessing his unwavering dedication to my physical recovery through the glowing screen gave me the immense psychological strength to push through the unbearable physical torment every single night. During the daylight hours, I strategically utilized my smartphone to systematically download comprehensive digital bank statements officially documenting Kelsey, continuously draining my financial assets. I simultaneously activated the covert voice recording application before discreetly sliding the electronic device underneath my flat pillow whenever my parents lingered outside my wooden door. Listening to the audio playback later that afternoon revealed an incredibly incriminating conversation between Dad, along with Mom, casually discussing their long history of committing federal income tax fraud. The IRS will never be able to trace that cash since we hid it perfectly. Dad boasted with absolute arrogance regarding his highly deceptive financial schemes. Hearing his confident confession provided me with the exact legal leverage I desperately needed to eventually destroy their entire parasitic existence once my body finally healed. The extreme necessity for absolute caution became terrifyingly apparent one specific night when Mom abruptly twisted the metal doorknob to peer into the pitch-black room without any prior warning whatsoever. I was caught right in the middle of a strenuous calf stretch, forcing me to instantly drop my heavy leg flat against the mattress while shutting my eyes incredibly tight. I quickly manipulated my breathing pattern to perfectly mimic the uneven rhythm of a deep slumber while desperately praying she would not notice my elevated heart rate pounding against my chest. She lingered suspiciously in the doorway for several agonizing minutes before finally clicking the door firmly shut, allowing me to silently exhale the heavy breath I had been holding. The very next morning thoroughly exposed the true depth of their calculating greed when I reached for my daily medication tray, resting on the dusty wooden nightstand. A crisp legal document was partially concealed underneath the plastic pill container, which turned out to be a fully drafted quitclaim deed, transferring my rightful property ownership directly over to them. They were obviously preparing the necessary legal paperwork to completely steal my house, the very moment my mental state deteriorated enough for them to forcefully extract my vulnerable signature. Despite the constant psychological warfare happening upstairs, I remained fiercely dedicated to the grueling rehabilitation regimen Derek had meticulously designed specifically for my severe spinal injuries. After several consecutive weeks of enduring absolute physical torture, my completely dormant thigh muscles suddenly experienced severe involuntary tremors that violently shook my entire left leg. I stared in absolute euphoric shock as my left big toe miraculously managed to twitch slightly upward completely on its own volition without me physically manipulating the stiff joint. Excellent work, Brenda. That muscle trembling is a clear sign the nerves are reconnecting. Just keep the rhythm going. Derek whispered through the secure digital connection, with genuine professional pride illuminating his tired face. A bleak Tuesday morning was abruptly interrupted when the sharp clicking of high heels on the hardwood floor signaled the intrusion of an uninvited guest. Kelsey confidently marched directly into my gloomy ground floor bedroom, leading a professionally dressed real estate agent right past my mattress. My sister casually announced to the bewildered stranger that they were merely conducting a standard property valuation to see exactly how much the residence was currently worth for their future financial planning. Her blatant disregard for my basic human dignity while treating me like an invisible piece of broken furniture infuriated me beyond human measure. The sheer audacity she displayed by parading a stranger through my private sanctuary, while I remained trapped in a dirty bed, perfectly encapsulated her profound greed. The visiting real estate agent looked down at my severely neglected physical state with genuine sympathy, while immediately noticing my extremely wary eyes glaring back at her. She quickly recognized the highly toxic dynamic filling the cramped bedroom before she started asking highly suspicious questions regarding the actual legal ownership of the property. The professional woman firmly clutched her appraisal clipboard to her chest while taking a cautious step backward away from my scheming sister. "Excuse me, but this house is still under Ms. Brenda's name, so I cannot appraise it without her clear consent," the agent stated firmly while giving Kelsey a deeply disapproving look. Dad, along with Mom, quickly squeezed through the narrow bedroom doorway at that exact moment, holding the identical quitclaim deed I had discovered hidden under my medication tray days prior. They aggressively plastered sickeningly sweet smiles across their wrinkled faces, trying desperately to coax me into submission while maintaining their fabricated loving caregiver act in front of the confused professional appraiser. Their sudden arrival completely suffocated the small space with their overbearing presence as they strategically positioned themselves on both sides of my bed to block any potential escape route. They continuously shoved a heavy black pen toward my trembling fingers, while aggressively urging me to press my signature onto the legal property transfer document right that very second. They shamelessly justified their criminal extortion by claiming the massive financial profit from selling my house would directly fund my long-term medical care at an affordable state nursing facility. "Just sign here and all the trouble will be over. I promise to use the money to take proper care of you," Mom cooed deceptively while aggressively forcing the clipboard onto my lap. She attempted to grab my wrist to manually guide the pen across the dotted line, while Dad leaned in closer to intimidate me into immediate compliance. The absolute absurdity of their calculated theft triggered a massive surge of adrenaline that completely overrode the lingering pain radiating throughout my recovering nervous system. I took a remarkably deep breath before aggressively swiping the heavy clipboard off my lap, sending the fraudulent legal papers scattering wildly across the dusty hardwood floor. Reaching my trembling arms forward, I gripped the cold metal bed frame incredibly tightly before actively engaging the very thigh muscles Derek had brutally trained over the past month. I channeled every single ounce of my newly restored physical strength to push my heavy frame upward until my bare feet planted firmly against the floorboards. I slowly locked my knees together while pulling my torso up until I stood completely straight on my own 2 feet for the first time in weeks. The arrogant smirks permanently vanished from their pale faces as they stared in absolute horrified shock at the paralyzed daughter towering defiantly over their pathetic scam. The exact moment I stood firmly on my own 2 feet, the atmosphere inside the cramped bedroom completely froze into absolute stunned silence. Dad stared at my functional legs with his mouth hanging wide open, while Mom literally took a fearful step backward, bumping into the terrified real estate agent. The professional agent immediately realized she was caught in a massive criminal conspiracy, forcing her to sprint out the front door without uttering a single goodbye. Ignoring the panicked mumbling escaping from my parents, I aggressively threw the thick stack of printed bank statements right onto the dirty mattress. I reached underneath my flat pillow to retrieve the hidden digital recording device before tossing it directly next to the incriminating financial documents. I loudly exposed Kelsey for continuously stealing my personal credit card to fund her lavish shopping sprees while she completely neglected my basic human needs. I then explicitly detailed their entire sickening conspiracy to commit real estate fraud by forcefully stealing my rightful property through a highly deceptive medical proxy. Before Kelsey could even manage to stutter a single pathetic excuse, denying her blatant financial crimes, the piercing wail of approaching sirens echoed loudly outside. The deafening noise of Portland police cruisers rapidly arriving in my driveway confirmed that my carefully orchestrated revenge plan was finally falling perfectly into place. I had secretly contacted local law enforcement along with Adult Protective Services earlier that morning to report severe domestic abuse mixed with massive financial extortion. Several uniformed police officers quickly stepped through the bedroom doorway, followed closely by an official caseworker representing the State Protective Agency. The authorities immediately took control of the chaotic situation by separating my furious family members into different corners of the room away from my bed. Ms. Brenda, we need to quickly review these audio recordings and bank statements before executing any arrest warrants, the lead officer stated professionally, while securing the perimeter. I confidently handed over the digital voice recorder, alongside the highlighted banking documents proving exactly $15,000 had been stolen from my checking accounts. All the evidence of fraud and theft is right here. Now get the hell out of my house immediately. I commanded them with absolute unwavering authority. The police officers spent several tense minutes verifying the overwhelming physical proof confirming my sister had indeed committed felony identity theft across multiple retail locations. They listened closely to the clear audio recordings detailing the exact methods Mom used to conceal her fraudulent property transfer paperwork. Kelsey collapsed onto her knees, begging loudly for forgiveness, while frantically claiming she fully intended to repay every single stolen dollar. Following a rapid assessment of the undeniable facts, the officers forcefully pulled her shaking hands behind her back, while snapping heavy metal handcuffs tightly around her wrists. As she sobbed hysterically, the APS caseworker officially triggered an emergency protection order, demanding Dad, along with Mom, vacate the residential premises right that very second. The APS caseworker handed them a formal restraining order, legally prohibiting them from ever returning to the property under the threat of immediate incarceration. The authorities sternly informed my parents they were completely forbidden from packing any personal belongings before being forcefully escorted outside by the armed officers. I slowly walked across the hardwood floor using my newly restored physical strength before leaning my tired body heavily against the sturdy wooden windowsill. I stared through the cold glass pane with total emotional detachment, watching the flashing red alongside blue patrol lights illuminating their highly humiliating public departure. The entire neighborhood watched closely as the authorities shoved my screaming sister into the cramped back seat of the marked vehicle. Witnessing the police cars driving them away toward the county jail forever washed away months of agonizing trauma inflicted by my own toxic blood relatives. The heavy front door finally clicked shut behind the last departing officer, instantly returning absolute perfect peace to my legally owned estate. As the creators of this channel, we present this story strictly for educational purposes. It highlights the absolute importance of establishing personal boundaries. We aim to inspire viewers to handle severe domestic crises using pure logic, reason, and the proper legal channels rather than emotional reactions. Brenda decisively protected her peace by completely cutting off her toxic relatives without any hesitation. Her abusers suffered the inevitable legal consequences of their unforgivable greed. Her parents are currently facing severe IRS criminal investigations while Kelsey drowns in massive restitution debt. Meanwhile, Brenda successfully reclaimed her health, home, and lasting happiness. Looking back at this nightmare, we can extract several crucial lessons about self-respect and survival. Bloodline does not grant a free pass for abuse. You have the absolute right to surgically remove toxic individuals from your life, even if they are your immediate family members. Strict financial independence and rigid personal boundaries are your strongest shields. Never allow anyone to use guilt or emotional manipulation to compromise your rightful assets, your dignity, or your physical safety. Your ultimate value is never determined by your body weight or the cruel judgment of others. True strength is found in your unwavering courage to stand up, fight back, using the law, and violently reject victimhood when pushed into a corner. We sincerely thank you for patiently listening to this intense story until the very final second. We truly appreciate your continuous support and dedication to our channel. Now we want to hear your perspective on this situation. Have you ever faced betrayal from your own blood relatives, and how would you have handled this extreme crisis if you were in Brenda's position? Let us know below.